Oasis Church, how you doing? You know, the 11 o'clock service has so much energy. 9 o'clock, they'll kind of go, still need more coffee. You guys are right on. Well, I'm Pastor Paul, and I work here, and I do whatever Bill tells me to do. And he tells me to do a lot. So one thing we're going to do is that he told me we're going to do the Family Matters. And as I was coming into first service, someone said, well, what's Family Matters? And if you remember, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 months ago, we did our first one. And it's really a mechanism for us to share with you important things that are going on at Oasis. And we're going to do it 3 or 4 times a year. We're church, we're family, families talk, Family Matters. And it's not always going to be about money. It'll be about significant things in the happening of life. But what we wanted to do is we're ending our fiscal year. It runs from July 1 to June 30th. So we wanted to give you a shot of where we were at and how we ended up financially last year, and then look forward to the new year. So that's where we're at. And as we sit here, I want to remind you, for those of you who are giving, and we appreciate everyone who does, that we have 2 main funds. One is our general fund, and that does all the ministry operations, anything related to whether it's the electricity, the gas, the air power and all that, the donuts. You guys eat a lot of donuts. And the coffee. It pays for the salaries. And you know what? One thing that a lot of you may not realize is Oasis, and we have this happen in church. There's all these things are happening all over the place. There's only one full-time staff here, and that's Bill. Everyone else is either part-time or volunteer. And isn't that awesome? Because they work really, really hard on that. Looking at a volunteer right now. We also have the building fund. And the building fund, we called it Here for Good because we were trying to come here for good. And now we're here and we're calling it the building fund, but that paid for all our construction costs to build everything, all that it took to get here, and also the debt, because we took out a loan to get here. So let's see where we ended up. So this year, which is going to end in about 6 weeks, really blew me away when I added all this up. This congregation gave $1.3 million. I mean, that is amazing. Really amazing. Your generosity just always astounds us. General fund was about $780,000. Building fund was $560,000. And it's amazing because on the building fund, people have given about $500,000 for 4 or 5 years in a row. And that always just amazes me. But it's so important because as we get into the next slide here, this building cost just under $6 million. And that's the land, that's all the permits, that's all the engineering, the architecture, the grading, the cement, the steel, everything, the seats you're sitting on, all of that, 5.9. And what is interesting, and this congregation has grown, not too long ago, it was only about 200 people. We raised 2.9, almost half of it. Half of it. That is just amazing. But we also knew that we weren't going to be able to fund this by ourselves. So this congregation a while back voted to get a loan, a construction loan of $3 million. And we're going to start paying that back like next year. But it's still amazing to me, the $2.9 million. So next slide here. So what do we still have to do? There's some minor things we have to do to get our certificate of occupancy still. We're still operating under temporary one. One of the main things we have to do is Ralph Stevens widening. If we're the developer, and it doesn't matter whether we're building condos across the street or whether we're a church, the developer pays for the street improvements. So we need to build another lane and curb and extend that out, and we're getting some bids for that. And if you come here, you know we're tight on parking. So one of the things we want to do is expand the parking coming around to our land that we come around off to the left there. So again, this congregation also approved an additional loan to be used as needed of $600,000. So if you add that up, there we go. A little slow in the back there. We have, if we use it all, these guys are great. We have a debt service of $3.6 million. And what has changed, and this is one of the reasons why I'm up here, is this last fiscal year, when you do a construction loan, you do what they call a draw. And so as you're building and you have the expenses come in, you draw what you need, what you can't pay for, and you only pay interest on it. And so this last year we paid about $95,000 in interest. But once you're done, you start doing the principal and interest, and we estimate that's going to be about $245,000. A lot of money when we do. And so as we move in here, we just want to make you aware that we still have this great building, we do all this great stuff, but we are going to start paying principal and interest on this. And so that's a lot of dollars that we going to spend. So we're asking to continue to give to Rise and Build, to the building fund, and continue to give to the general fund. So what are we looking at for next year, in fiscal year 23-24? First and foremost, and then, I'm up here, I'm talking about logistics and practical thing, but we're just saying what a great God we have. And we want to be this grace-filled, welcoming, loving Jesus, Bible-oriented church. We want to love our God. We want to understand who he is. We want to be welcoming to people. That's job one. That's what it's all about. But there are practical things. We want to complete the city-mandated projects. There's a clock ticking on that. We want to get that done. We want to expand parking as we can. And the other thing we want to do is we want to reduce our debt. We want to be good stewards. And so we want to pay as little as interest as possible. And so that means not only paying the minimum of our debt service, but also chunking down the principal so we can get that debt paid off as much and as fast as possible. So what's our prayer for you? Our prayer for you is, again, first and foremost, that you continue to grow in your faith, grow in your knowledge of this great God. We sing about it, we praise about it. This church is just a God-filled, Jesus-centered Bible place. We want you to grow in that faith. That is it. We want you to see and hope and pray that you'll see Oasis as your church home. It's a place more than just coming on Sunday. It's a place where you can get involved, you can serve. So many people volunteer in so many different ways. Get involved in a small group. We want it to be a place where you can be. We also ask that you support the general and building funds because that's what it takes to make it happen. Sometimes preaching about money and talking about money is a little bit awkward, but the Bible talks about it. In fact, Paul talks about it quite a bit in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. And if you've never read that, I encourage you to read that. And he talks a lot about giving, but he ends with this. And this is 2 Corinthians 9, verse 7. He said, each one must give as he's decided in his heart. Some people say as he's purposed in his heart. So what do you decide to give? It's an intentional act. It's an intentional thought. What are you doing? Not reluctantly or under compulsion. That's the last thing we want. No one should be giving begrudgingly. No one be giving because they're twisting their arm. For God loves a cheerful giver. And that's our goal for you. And our whole purpose is just make you aware of where we're at, make you aware of the great things that this congregation has done, make you aware of the things that we need to do. And that's our Family Matters moment for right now.